Another UTA drill weekend is in the books. And here you are, still without that dream job in the Air Force Reserve, and definitely nowhere close to zeroing in on a chance to prove your worth at an interview. You're sad. You might even shed a tear or two while driving out the front gate that afternoon. I bet you're probably wondering, why not me, oh hiring gods? Well, if this is you, I got just the video for you. Stick around as I share my insights as a former chief pilot and head hiring officer for an Air Force Reserve flying squadron. Welcome to Beyond the HUD, an aviation career consulting firm that provides vectors to your dream job, whether that be in the Air Force Reserve, Air National Guard, service academies, ROTC, or on the other side of the aviation coin, choosing the best civilian path. We do it all. My name is Jared Wood. I'll be your host for this and other videos, giving you the insights and answers to some of aviation's toughest questions. Why is that button red? No, not that question, but other ones. You're probably wondering why I'm here talking about how to get hired at an Air Force Reserve squadron. As I mentioned earlier, I was a former chief pilot, specifically the 313th Airlift Squadron at McChord Air Force Base. We fly the Mighty Moose, or the C-17, if you want to use the proper terminology. I spent the last 15 years of my career involved in pilot hiring in some capacity or another. Whether it's sitting in on the hiring boards, casually chatting with candidates that in the squadron, or making the final decisions on who we hire, I've done it all and seen it all. Good, bad, and a lot of times ugly. That's why we're here today. If I'm being completely transparent, I really do miss being a chief pilot in the Air Force Reserve. It was definitely my most rewarding job I did since joining the Air Force Reserve, and in the 3+ years that I was involved in being a chief pilot, I hired a lot of great pilots and some not so great pilots. No, just kidding. You guys are mediocre at best. No, just kidding. However, there were a few and far in between those great pilots when compared to the not so great candidates. So my goal here is to try and share some of my experiences and expertise as a chief pilot so you don't make some of these same mistakes. This video is certainly not all encompassing of the most common ways to drive out that front gate in tears, but it's a few of the more common examples of candidate controlled flight into terrain that I've seen over the years. If you're a chief pilot or someone in a higher capacity and wants to add, your anecdotes, your stories, your vignettes to the list, feel free to comment below. Or if you're one of those candidates that maybe made a few mistakes along the way, throw a comment down below for the enjoyment of the rest of us. At the end of this video, I'll try and share a few insights how you can best present yourself when making a unit visit. For those of you watching, as always, you can head over to beyondthehud.com and take advantage of our career mentoring services. As always, your initial consultation call is always free. Right on. Enough of the setup. Let's get into the top 5 mistakes pilot hopefuls make when visiting an Air Force Reserve unit. In no particular order, let's take a peek under the covers. Reason number 1. Your timing isn't my timing. That's right. Sometimes in life, your timing is off. Ah, yes, there you are. You just walked into my office on a Saturday morning of the UTA. In your back pocket, I can see your 12-month plan sticking out of your Banana Republic slacks. Right up near the top, it says October. Go visit XYZ Squadron. November, have unit beg me to come back and meet the rest of the unit. December, get interviewed by unit, job in the bag. UPT January, graduation February, Thunderbirds March. Well, you get the idea. We have some candidates that come through with very unrealistic expectations, and it's really our job to try and temper those in this video. And also, if you're a candidate that is interested in what the unit's timeline is, just ask, hey, When are you guys having your next board, etc. So that being said, I have seen the timing work out for some candidates where they walk in, the timing is great, they get on an interview board a couple months later, they compete at the AFRIC level, they get sent to pilot training, they do officer training school en route. It's very seamless, but for the most part, it's a very long process. So I think temper your expectations always with, this is going to be a long process. But that aside, there are a lot of reasons why units may not have room for you at the time for an interview. There may not be a capacity to hire anytime soon. And some of those reasons from a chief pilot's perspective is we already have previously hired pilots that are waiting to go to UPT. So we got to wait for some slots to open up. We may have folks that are already at UPT. Maybe we have 2 or 3, depending on the timing. And maybe we just can't hire any more right now. We got to wait till some of those folks flow back before we can hire more pilots. We also have fiscal restraints. We have manning authorizations that, as much as I would like to hire every great candidate that comes through the door, I'm not actually allowed to go over a certain quota of pilots every year. And that is fiscally mandated, really out of our control. So while I'd love to have 100 new pilots every year, the reality is I can only have a few. Also, in terms of the workload for the chief pilots, putting on a hiring board, making the interviews, setting that all up, it's a lot of work. So, depending on the workload of the chief pilots and their staff, it may not be for a couple months before we can have an interview. Also, we have established battle rhythms and hiring cycles. So if we interview every October and you come to us in September, etc., it may not work out, right? It may be the fact that your timing just doesn't line up with ours. So all those things being considered, you can kind of see how, depending on when you start the process with the unit, you might be waiting months for the next hiring board. On the flip side, maybe they just had a hiring board. So it's December. They just had a hiring board in November. They might not have another one until the following year. So you're going to be waiting a while. In that time, you can continue to rush the unit. You can continue to make inroads. Or, you can move on and find a unit that maybe works better for your timing. You really have to decide, what is the best strategy for you? Do you want to cast this huge wide net? Or do you want to zero in on a particular unit because you really like the unit, you like the airframe, location, etc.? So like I said, timing is everything. Sometimes if your timing is not great, it's just not going to work out for you. Moving on from timing, we come to the second reason why you're not getting hired at a reserve unit. You're not ready, Freddie. That's right. There's a lot of things that you need to do in order to have yourself be competitive to compete for an Air Force Reserve unit flying job. So while your inner pilot spirit animal may think, hey, I'm ready to go, in reality, if that inner pilot spirit animal isn't qualified in terms of all the requisites and the things that the units are looking for, they're not going to probably give you a second look. Or they may give you a second look, but it's going to wait until all your ducks in a row. Ducks. Flying ducks. Do we have ducks? No. Anyways, you know what I'm talking about in terms of those things that they want to see, right? They want to make sure you have the AFOQT done, that your scores are competitive. You got to make the TBAS sing. You got to have your PICSM score calculated. You need to have a degree either in hand or close to it. For some units, they want to see that you've gone through MEPS. You have some kind of idea that you're physically qualified. Flight hours, ratings, right? They want to see all those shiny flight hours and ratings done. Also, in addition, some units want to see that fancy Breitling watch on your hand. So without that, they may look the other way. You get what I'm saying here, right? All these things, not an inclusive list that I just mentioned. Every unit has specific things that they're looking for in order to extend that interview invite. If for some reason you're not getting that interview invite and you have gaps in your portfolio, it might be a good idea just to ask them, hey, if I get X, Y, and Z done, would I be more competitive? Would I, be able to get that interview invite? Some chief pilots will give you that honesty and some will just keep you beating around the bush. There's obviously always exceptions to what I mentioned here. I mean, I've seen and personally identified qualified candidates that I thought, hey, as soon as this person gets a degree, I am going to interview them. So like I said, your mileage may vary depending on the unit, depending on how splashy of an entrance you've made and how much they like you, etc. So that being said, in terms of you're not ready, Freddie, the best advice I can give you is just have all your qualifications done before you walk through that door the first time. Which brings us to the next reason, right? Why aren't I getting hired or interviewed? Well, they just may not be that into you, right? So trying to find a unit where you like them, they like you, it's kind of a lot like dating. So it really does have to be a good fit on both ends, right? So also like dating, right? The prettier the Instagram pictures are of the unit that you're going to, the more selective units can and will be, right? So if, depending on if it's a fighter unit versus a heavy unit versus a, unit XYZ that's inland and not near the coast, right? There's a lot of reasons why some units are more popular than others. But that being said, as you get out to the coasts and the airframes get pointier, the competition tends to be a little bit fierce. So you really have to wade through all that and decide, is the juice worth the squeeze here, right? Do I really have a shot at XYZ unit? And really only you can tell. So in terms of the culture and the fit of the unit, every unit's going to have a little bit of a different mindset, a certain fit, if you will, that goes along with it. Even amongst the same airframe, you're going to find the cultures can be widely different between base X and base Y. At McCord, for example, there's 3 units. And while each unit is great, they have awesome people, each unit has a slightly different flavor, a slightly different just culture, if you will. And sometimes you're just a better fit in one than others. Perfect example, I've seen candidates that come into, one squadron, they completely bomb, like not with real bombs, but, they don't do well. And then they walk 30 feet down to the next squadron, go through the door, and, months later they're hired. So it really depends. Like the fit has to be there. You have to feel that pitter patter in your heart. They have to feel it for you. If it's not happening, just move on, right? It's not you, it's them, or maybe it's you. Speaking of moving on, let's go take a look at reason 4, right? So reason 4, you're a foreigner in a foreign land. Man. This is a tricky one for some chief pilots, right? Others, it's not so tricky. They'll be very straightforward and honest about their desire for you to be either living in base or close to base, right? So if you don't have a lot of a connection to a geographic location, it's probably going to be a little more difficult for you to get hired at that unit. You really have to convey an interest and a super deep-seated love of a particular place or a connection. Units want to know that when they hire you, that you're going to be someone that's going to stick around. You're not going to just go to pilot training and then bounce for another unit. And the best way that you can show that is that either you're from the area, you have connections to it, or you just love it, right? A lot of times I'll have candidates, they'll call me up and they'll say, hey, I really like McCord. I'll be, oh, cool. What do you like about McCord? I don't know. I've never been, right? So do some research, whether that be actual, spend some time in the area, get to know it, be able to talk about the people, the politics, the geography. Everywhere you go in the United States, as everyone here has probably been to different places, there's a different geographic and political lean to everywhere. I've been stationed at Charleston, South Carolina, and Mississippi, in Spokane, Washington, and Seattle, Washington, all these different places where, the leanings of one place are not the same as the others. So, if I have a candidate that I know really is not going to flourish in a particular political environment, etc., I really have to take that into account. Like, is this person going to fit in here? Are they going to, after a couple of years ago, I can't stand the rain in Washington. I can't stand the political bent, whatever. So get to know get to know the area. Be able to quote something about the area that you've done. Be able to cite things that you like about the state or the area, etc., that are going to let the unit know that you're going to stick around. like I said, my personal preference was typically to hire someone, if all things are being equal, right? If there's a scorecard and this person gets a B and this person gets a B and this person gets a B, if one person is from the area and everything else is the same, the unit has really no difference in terms of preference on one or the other, I would typically go with a person who has a stronger local presence or from the area. So just something to think about. If all things being equal, you're not getting the interview, it may be because you're not from the area. Anyway, so that being said, know your area, know where you're going to. The last reason I think that candidates don't get hired at an Air Force Reserve unit mostly has to do with your first impression was probably bad. They say you only get a first chance. You only get one chance to make a bad impression, good impression. Your first impression is your impression, right? So I've seen it all. I've seen misspelling my name, misspelling my rank, putting down the wrong squadron, putting down the wrong base. These things they seem trivial, they seem petty, but it really starts you off on the wrong foot when you answer the phone or somebody calls you or sends you an email, and it's just wrong from the start. In my mind, it's tough to come back from a bad first impression. I've had people that said that they want to meet me, and then they're an hour late, and boy, that kind of stuff just drives me crazy. And I don't usually give people a second chance when I was a chief pilot, unless they were able to mitigate that some way. So that being said, if you're wearing a 3-piece suit to the barbecue, if you're hammering back 6 packs of beer every hour, which I gotta say was kind of impressive, but you get the idea, right? You don't want to be too one way or the other. Be yourself, but just be like a cooler, more awesome version of yourself. It's typically what I tell people when they ask me how to get hired at a reserve unit. But that being said, I've seen it all, and I've also seen that every once in a while, folks do get a second chance to make that first impression better. I'll sidebar here a little bit, and I'll tell you the story of Big Tasty. So I got a text from a candidate from active duty, and a little different scenario. This person was looking to come over from active duty to the reserve side. So he had gotten my phone number from somebody, and he texted me, and he was very professional in his text, and he said, "Hey, got your number from so-and-so and such squadron, and can I come by this weekend? I hope you don't mind me tasting you." And I responded back, and I said, "No, you can taste me anytime you want. Certainly, I'll take a look at your resume. Come by this weekend." And then as soon as I sent that back, he was appalled with himself. He's like, "Oh man, I should have done spell check. I'm really sorry." As it turns out, great guy, good candidate. He ended up getting hired in the wing, so it all worked out. But he will forever be known as Big Tasty. I think I actually even have him in my contacts as Big Tasty. But you don't want to be Big Tasty, right? Try and make that great first impression. That being said, kind of a sidebar aside, squadron visits are super awkward, especially if it's your first time in the unit and you're not really seasoned at the art of small talk. So, what I would say to you is try and prepare as much as possible. Being comfortable with who you are, interacting with folks, making that small talk, it's difficult, but if you practice over time, I guarantee you'll become more comfortable, you'll become more confident, and that confidence will convey to the units that you visit. So, trying to give you guys a little bit of free nuggets there. I did tell you in the beginning that I would give you a few tasty morsels at the end of this video, at the end of the video. So let's go ahead and pay attention. As I was alluding to earlier, practice your intro speech. Have your 30-second elevator spiel down. Be able to find a common ground with whoever you talk to, right? So you're going to walk into a unit, you're going to see all kinds of different people. They might be enlisted, they might be officers, they might be junior officers, they may be commanders, ops officers. Try and have some kind of common ground. And the easiest way that you can do that is ask them about their plane. What do you love about your plane? What do you love about your mission? It sounds corny, but when people ask me, "Hey, what do you like about Operation Deep Freeze?" I will literally be there talking to them for an hour because that's my passion point. I love that mission. So same thing with your unit. Try and figure out what's the unit about. What airplane do they fly? That should be easy, right? But how do they fly it? How do they deploy? How do they employ? What are some things that they do that maybe other units don't do? How can you show that you've done your research with the unit, that you know what they do, that you're not walking into this with naivety, that you understand, hey, this unit deploys or this unit does this. I mean, the last thing that units want to do is try and entertain someone that has no idea what they're about. I mean, they will certainly share with candidates what they do, but the expectation is you're already in love with me. Like, I don't need to sell myself. You need to sell yourself, right? Show me how good you are. Show me how you're going to fit into this unit. What are the things that you bring to the table? Another thing that I would recommend is in your visits, ask questions. A lot of times I would get candidates that would either call or they come visit. And one thing that I always did that I learned to do after being a chief pilot for a couple of years, I would always end the conversation with, what do you have for me? Do you have any questions about the unit? Do you have any questions for me? And invariably I'd get, that's about it, right? But every once in a while, a great candidate would ask me a pointed question about, like I mentioned, tell me about Operation Deep Freeze. Okay, do you have an hour? Let's talk. So just have in your mind some questions formulated that shows that you're interested about the unit, that you've, like I said earlier, that you've done your research. Chief pilots can be sneaky. Sometimes they'll throw you like a curveball. If they do, just roll with it. Try and be professional. Try not to get emotional. At the end of the day, at Beyond the HUD, we want to try and make sure that our candidates go into this process prepared. They have all the information that they need, that they are going to make a great first impression. All the things that we talked about, Beyond the HUD is here for you. If you're serious about getting hired to a reserve unit, head on over to us, beyondthehud.com, sign up for a free consultation. We offer a variety of products to help you get that elusive reserve pilot interview, right? But that process starts with the visits. It starts with your resume. It starts with your cover letter. It starts with networking, all these things that need to be done first before you get that interview. And at beyondthehud.com, we have over 25 years of helping folks get to where they want to be in the Air Force Reserve side. We will give you vectors to get on course, and glide path. Lastly, if you like the content here, give the obligatory like and subscribe down below. Comments, especially the sassy ones, are always appreciated as well. Until next time, see ya.